told you it was love. They convinced you it was normal. They made you believe the problem was you. But somewhere beneath the confusion, the self-doubt, the endless explanations that never quite made sense, you knew something was wrong. This is where we stop pretending. This is where we examine what they never wanted you to see. The patterns that controlled you, the systems that protected them.
Over 90 of the top 100 U.S. accounting firms trust Bill to handle bill pay processes. Why? Because our tools are built on over $1 trillion of secure payments. We're not just moving money. We're powering financial workflows for 500,000 customers. That's a level of expertise you just can't fake. Ready to talk with an expert? Visit Bill.com/proven to get started and grab a $250 gift card as a thank you. Terms and conditions apply. See offer page for details.
Support for this podcast comes from Progressive, America's #1 motorcycle insurer. Did you know riders who switch and save with Progressive save nearly $200 per year? That's a whole new pair of riding gloves and more. Quote today, Progressive Casualty Insurance Company and Affiliates. National average 12-month savings of $197 by new customers surveyed who saved with Progressive between October 2024 and September 2025. Potential savings will vary.
If you've ever felt dismissed, devalued, or blamed simply because you didn't fit into rigid gender roles enforced by a male-dominated culture, you're recognizing a pattern of systemic scapegoating that operates far beyond just one family. Maybe you questioned why you had to be quiet while the men talked. Maybe you pushed back against doing all the emotional labor in your relationship. Maybe you refused to smile on command or make yourself smaller to accommodate someone else's comfort. And suddenly you became the problem, the troublemaker, the difficult one. Welcome back to the Narcissistic Abuse Recovery Podcast. I'm Lynn, your host. Today we're talking about something that's going to feel uncomfortable but necessary. We're looking at how patriarchal systems use the same scapegoating tactics you experienced in your narcissistic family or relationship, just on a much larger scale. Here's what I need you to understand. The scapegoating you experienced wasn't just personal. It wasn't just your narcissistic parent or partner being cruel. You were living inside a smaller version of a much bigger system that's designed to maintain power by making certain people the repository for everyone else's problems. Patriarchal structures operate exactly like narcissistic family systems. There's a hierarchy where those at the top must maintain their position by deflecting accountability downward. When systems fail, when men in power make mistakes, when structures crumble, someone has to take the blame. And it's never going to be the people who built those systems. So who becomes the scapegoat? Women who speak up. People who don't conform to gender expectations. Anyone who points out the inequality or refuses to play their assigned role in keeping others comfortable. You become the problem because addressing the real problem would require those in power to examine themselves. You might have experienced this in your family of origin, where questioning why your brother got different rules made you rebellious, where asking why you had to manage everyone's emotions made you selfish, where refusing to shrink yourself to make your father or male family members feel bigger made you difficult. In romantic relationships, this looks like being called crazy for noticing patterns, being labeled controlling for asking for basic respect, being dismissed as too emotional when you're responding to genuinely problematic behavior. Your partner's inability to handle conflict becomes your problem for creating it. Their failure to contribute equally becomes your problem for expecting too much. The workplace does this too. Women get blamed for team dysfunction, while the actual disruptive behavior from male colleagues gets overlooked. You're too aggressive when you advocate for yourself, but too weak when you don't. You're a perfectionist when you do good work, but incompetent when standards slip under someone else's leadership. This is projection on a massive scale. The insecurities, failures, and shortcomings of patriarchal systems get dumped on anyone who threatens the illusion of male superiority. It's the same mechanism your narcissistic family member used, just amplified through cultural norms. And here's the part that's going to make you angry. This system taught you to participate in your own scapegoating. It convinced you that if you just tried harder, spoke softer, made yourself smaller, the mistreatment would stop. It told you the problem was your sensitivity, your expectations, your refusal to just go along. The culture gaslit you into believing that pointing out inequality was the real problem, not the inequality itself. That asking for basic human dignity was asking for too much. That your natural responses to being diminished were evidence of your inherent flaws. You probably spent years trying to prove you weren't the problem by becoming perfect, working twice as hard, managing everyone's comfort, apologizing for taking up space, shrinking your voice, your dreams, your very presence to avoid being labeled difficult. But here's what they didn't want you to figure out. Your sensitivity wasn't the problem. It was picking up on real injustice. Your expectations weren't too high. They were normal human requirements for respect. Your refusal to accept mistreatment wasn't difficult behavior. It was self-preservation. The system needed you to believe you were the problem because the alternative was too threatening. If you weren't defective, if your responses were actually reasonable, then the system itself would have to change. And systems built on dominance don't change willingly. This is why your healing feels so radical. This is why setting boundaries feels like revolution. Because you're not just healing from individual abuse. You're breaking free from a cultural pattern designed to keep you small and silent. You're realizing that every time you were made the scapegoat, it was about protecting someone else's ego, someone else's power, someone else's version of reality that required your diminishment to survive. The daughter who questions gender roles isn't rebellious. She's seeing clearly. The woman who refuses to manage everyone's emotions isn't selfish. She's setting healthy limits. The person who points out workplace inequality isn't difficult. They're telling the truth. You weren't born to be anyone's emotional dumping ground. You weren't put on this earth to absorb blame for other people's failures. You weren't designed to make yourself smaller so others could feel bigger. The problem was never you. The problem was a system that required your silence to function, your compliance to survive, your self-doubt to thrive. When have you been made the problem in a situation where those in power avoided taking responsibility? And what does that reveal about the broader system you're living in? This is Lynn, and this has been another episode of the Narcissistic Abuse Recovery Podcast. I'll see you in the next one. Visit our website at movingforwardafterabuse.com for articles, resources, and more support on your recovery journey.
When it comes to managing money, forget the hype and look at the results. Bill has $1 trillion of secure payments powering our bill pay tools. Instead of just moving money, Bill is powering the financial operations of nearly 500,000 customers. So stop the guesswork and start scaling with the proven choice. Ready to talk with an expert? Visit Bill.com/proven to get started. And grab a $250 gift card as a thank you. Terms and conditions apply. See offer page for details.
Ever walk past a place for rent and wish you could just take a peek inside? Maybe even explore the layout. Envision the natural light streaming through the windows. Or plan where your vinyl record collection would go. At Apartments.com, you can. With tools like their 3D virtual tours, you can see the exact unit you could be living in. Really envision yourself in your new home with Apartments.com, the place to find a place.
This work is hard, really hard. Questioning everything you were taught. seeing systems that were invisible, sitting with truths that change how you see the world. It's exhausting and overwhelming sometimes. There's no timeline for this, no right way to process it. We've gone daily now because these conversations matter. Subscribe so new episodes land automatically when they drop.